Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of SuperFantaFi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm gonna talk about Tokyo Override Season 1, Episode 4. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I was kind of surprised by, well, obviously, I'm going to butcher the character's name again. I'm going to say, like, Uji had warned the squad about how narcotics was, like, going hard into pain, and they were setting up all these things, and, like, large crowds are going to they're going to do everything they can to kind of pencil in the Sumo Garage, because it's like they probably picked up stuff about you guys now, so you want to be even higher on alert. You want to be low key, but Kai wants to go to a concert, and I was like, really? And she's like, because a Yumi's there. And I was like, wait, you want to go for a Yumi? I was like, is this really the time, considering all the trouble that's going on? But for her, it's like, well, the person she was buying the drugs for was a Yumi, and she's probably thinking, well, the last time she talked to a Yumi in episode 2 was like, oh, I'm gonna have to buy the drugs at the concert, so that's probably like, oh, I don't want her to get in trouble and stuff like that. But even I'm like, man, she she straight up treated you like crap the last time you talked to each other in episode 2. Like, but I'm like, what is your connection with her? And it seems like, and it's kind of what I kind of thought. I was like, well, I was kind of wondering, like, could it be a little bit more to friendship? Could Kai have, like, feelings for Yumi? But it seems like, no, it's probably like, you're just like the only friend she has. We haven't seen her really interact with anyone outside of a Yumi. So when that's the only friend you have and they're potentially in trouble, it's like, you've kind of, I mean, you already went above and beyond. I mean, you went to a different, like, sector or district or whatever just to buy her, like, this highway drug. Like, you went above and beyond already. Now you're trying to do it again because, like, she's important to you, and you think and at least hope and believe that you're important to her too. So she was going to go regardless, but Watari's dad gave her the hookup. It was like, hey, here's this very specific hack thing that it's like, it's very powerful, but it will screw up your situation too. So make it like a last ditch effort. And I guess because he looks at her as like, right, didn't have start off with the best relationship, but he sees her as like this young buck of like, hey, this is this kid who, trying to live her life, and, it's kind of concerned about her friend. So I think for him, it's like, right, as long as you're careful, you're pretty skilled. So just as long as you're, like, careful about it. But obviously the squad finds out about it, because at the same time this is all going down, Hugo's still dealing with the aftermath of last episode, where he's talking to the guy that stumbled across him. We didn't dive into it too much, but basically he was in debt, and so he got into the drug business. So, like, the notebook is his, so he was a part of the drug system at some point in time, and I guess those are his old notes, because he doesn't do it anymore. But I'm assuming that's how he ran into Lizard, or Kageyama, was just that whole situation. So it's like the guy's relentless. So I guess it's like, maybe like there's probably extra reason why you got out of the game is like constantly being hunted by the Lizard. But it could also just be like, well, I'm not say the Lizard, just say Lizard, because the Lizard just invokes Spider-Man Lizard. But either way, so I don't know. Like, we didn't get a lot on that, but I'm curious what that thread leads to. I mean, like, knowing, like, the shipment placements and stuff like that, and obviously it's going to be significant, but just, like, how it all plays out, it's going to be interesting to see. But yeah, Kai shows up at the concert, and she meets up with Ayumi. Sorry, I said Ayumi. And Ayumi was kind of like, right, this has nothing to do with me, but it's like, it kind of does. I mean, in her mind, it's like, right, Kai, you're the one that bothered her. Like, why would they bother with me? And it's like, well, you were literally here trying to buy drugs, and narcs are on their way. They're going to, like, bust you in that regard. But then Kai brings up something interesting, because Kai had never questioned previously, like, you weren't buying the highway for yourself, were you? But, like, who were you buying it for? And I was like, what's up with that? Like, is she a drug dealer or something? I was like, but that didn't make any sense. But then Kai was like, oh, did you do it so you could get close to the idols? I was like, is that what this was? I mean, Ayumi is shallow enough, as we've seen. We've kind of seen more of a bad side than her good side, so we don't have that connection to her that Kai does. We got that tiny flashback, but it still doesn't outweigh all. But once again, that's, who knows, like, how long they've been friends. But it did pretty early on look like well, it does seem like you do way more for a Yumi than a Yumi does for you, because it's just like, it's always kind of like, what have you done for me? And specifically, what have you done for me lately? So once again, like, don't forget, this is the person that trashed you and stuff like that. So, but yeah, she tried to get her out of there, but some guy grabs her up and takes her off. The moment I got suspicious was the moment she kept being able to send messages to Kai, I was like, okay, this is definitely a setup. Because I'm like, how are these people who are kidnapping her, taking her, just going to like, how are they going to just like let her do that? When you're kidnapping someone, you're going to shut down any form of communication. So that's what I was like, that didn't make any sense, that she kept getting messages out and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, this is definitely a setup, especially because Hugo asked, like, can you trust her? But Kai was like, of course I can. And it's like, oh, how are you so sure she's not just using it? That's the sad thing. She spent so much time trying to chase after Ayumi, despite kind of having this group who has up until now has her back a lot more than Ayumi has. But it's like, right, like she has deeper ties with Ayumi because like we've been friends for a while, and she accepts me. She found out I'm tagless and I'm not from here, but she still accepted me. And she talked about like, right, not having roots is kind of a good thing. There's a certain freedom with it. And it's like, right, this person made me feel okay and comfortable about my situation. So of course I'm going to back them up. But yeah, Hugo brought up the good point of like, right, like you got to trust us. I mean, obviously Hugo was like, right, you don't know how to ride a bike. It's like, well, you didn't know that because you weren't around last episode, but Spoke gave her kind of like some lessons, and obviously she picks up on stuff pretty quickly too. So, but yeah, it's just, she's torn between like, choosing the person that she considers a friend versus the people who become new friends. It's like, I don't have that personal connective history. Like, despite you guys were cool and everything, but she still chose Ayumi over them, sadly. And it's just, I mean, because also in her mind, it's like Ayumi's in danger, but Hugo did say like, right, you want to think this through. Like, what if Narc, specifically Kageyama, is out for blood, so it's like someone could get killed, like you could end up making things worse, and sadly she did. And that's what's kind of she's beating herself up about later on, because it's like, I went through all this and like Hugo tried to warn me, but I didn't listen. I did everything I could to stop Watari from catching up too quickly to me. So yeah, by the time she gets there, shots were popping off. And then when she gets around the corner, I mean, hell, she caught a stray to the face. Like, luckily, it just cut her face a little. But, like, she comes in there, places riddled with dead bodies. I was like, is Ayumi going to be dead? I was like, that's going to be dark. But then it's like, no, she's still alive. But then she reveals, like, right, she's like, this wasn't supposed to happen. I was supposed to just lead you here. So I was like, did Kageyama set this all up then? Like, because Kageyama and them, like, knew, well, they've been tracking them, so they knew exactly where they were. But at first I was like, wait, did she set them up with whoever was behind all this? Or was it, but I'm leaning towards thinking it was Kageyama. She, like, Narcs had gotten to her first. Because they probably, like, went through it and saw the connections that, like, oh, they probably went through footage and stuff and saw, like, oh, Kai's connected to this person. So let's put some pressure on her. And she caved and was like, right, she didn't think anyone was going to get hurt, let alone killed. So, but yeah, stuff goes from bad to worse because Kageyama and Narcs show up. Kai tries to hack their weapons, but it's like, no, they have preventative measures because we're not underestimating you this time, kid. So they shot Watari, they shot Spoke, both of them in the leg, and put trackers in them. And you're just like, well, at least there was a tracker in Watari's leg. I don't know if there was necessarily one for Spoke or not. But luckily, Hugo shows up and busts up the function. But, like, I was kind of worried. I brought this up earlier in the season. I was like, Hugo feels like he's going to be that leader that dies, and Kai might have to pseudo fill that void to some extent. That's what I was kind of worried. I was like, Hugo just seems like that cool leader that sadly dies in the story, and I was kind of worried that this might be that moment. But Kageyama's like ruthlessness of like, yo, let me shoot you. Like, it's like, why are you willing to go this far? Because that's the back and forth. You're just like, I don't know if because the last episode kind of ends off making you think like, oh, Kageyama is like a part of this. He's kind of doing all this to cover his own tracks or whatever. Like, he's the bad guy that's a part of the investigation, trying to, see what everyone knows and tying up loose ends. But as we see later on, or it's heavily implied by the ending of this episode, it's like he's not. There's even conversation during that warehouse situation that, yeah, he legitimately thinks he's the good guy. It's just he's willing to go so far because he's like, right, you guys are a scum of society. He'd almost kind of brought up like, oh, does the system exist existing creates scum like you, or is it scum like you existing that creates the system? Is it a chicken or an egg, which came first, the chicken or the egg type of situation? But it's like, yeah, he's a vengeful, like, hard-boiled cop of like, yeah, I'm gonna do whatever it takes because I do believe I'm on the right side of things, so I'm not gonna feel so bad about it. Because he even says like, oh yeah, using that boy as a drug mule. So if he was really behind all this, he wouldn't throw that in their faces. He had no reason to. I mean, granted, there's other cops around, so he could have been keeping up appearances, but like, to say that specifically made me go like, right, he's not behind all this. He's just an asshole cop that is willing to go too far, and he also believes himself to be right. He believes they are responsible for this, so that's why he's not showing them any leniency. Because he's just like, right, it's always going to be up to people like me to rid this world of scum like you who do what you do. And, and kind of digging deeper into Kai by being like, oh, you're tagless, kind of once again bringing up her worth and everything. So, and shooting Hugo multiple times. It's just like, jeez. I mean, first hit him with like a club or a piece of, hit him with something, knocked him off his bike, then shot him, I think, in the leg, and then just shot him in general. And it's just like, Jesus. But luckily, Kai used a hack that Watari's dad gave her, and it like nullified everyone's guns. In fact, it caused an explosion, so use that opportunity to slip away. And but then like something interesting happens. Like Kageyama and his partner was like, yeah, there are actually no guns here. And Kageyama's like, what? It's like, wait, there was like all like, because we saw somebody was popping off and firing at Kai. So because that was just the thing, because it's like. Because that was even Kageyama's partner's point of like, but why kill everybody? Like, this was just like, it feels like a gang war or something. But it's like, yeah, someone definitely shot at Kai and definitely shot all of them. So they came into this situation unarmed. So who's doing all this? Is this, covering your tracks? Or is someone trying to put Sumo Garage, like, needs Sumo Garage to be the fall guys? And they're pointing, because they know like Kageyama is a bull, and they know like, oh, we're just going to send you after them, so you have your fall guys for this type of thing. So because they knew, I guess, that he is kind of like a shark who smells blood in the water, and that they knew like they must know enough about Kageyama to be like, he's so obsessive that he's not going to he's just going to take things at face value. Like, he's going to just take the breadcrumbs that they give him. And but luckily our group managed to get away, but Hugo's at the hospital, and not Spoke nor Watari are beating Kai up about this, but I'm sure she's beating herself up about it, blaming herself, and she confronts Ayumi about it, and she's like, oh, don't worry, my wounds are okay. Like, oh, you came in to be my hero, but it's like, I came to rescue you, but you sold me out, right? And she's like, well, I never kind of asked you to be my hero or whatever. It's like, once again, being like ungrateful and stuff like that. And Kai's just kind of like, yeah, you're right. You know what? Just, I'm a call you a taxi or whatever. You can go back home. I'm sure your parents are worried about it. She's like, well, don't call me, but I want to stay with you, Kai, right? Like, we're kind of a package deal. And it's like, no, like, we're not. Because Kai came to realize, like, right, like, our relationship, it sours everything. Like, even if you were a good friend to me, now it sours a situation of, now I am starting to look back on everything like Hugo said, and like, have you always just used me? Like, yeah, you were a good friend to me, but that's only because like you were using me. You're very shallow, and that's all this relationship ever was. Like, did I ever really matter to you? You mattered to me, but like I said, it seemed to sadly be a one-way street. So I think for Ayumi, the only reason why she wants to hang around Kai, because she's like, well, I got mixed up in all of this, and if the cops get involved, and oh my god, my parents are going to be, I'm going to be in so much trouble. It's like, well, no, your parents are rich and powerful enough that, and that's kind of something Kai had brought up like in episode 1 or 2, I think specifically 2, where she was like, you'd be able to get highway without any trouble, and your parents would be able to kind of cover for it. But she was because she's a spoiled brat, where it's just kind of like, right, oh my god, like, my parents and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, but Kai's probably looking at her like, yeah, it's easy to be kind of very like, you luckily have your parents. You might look at them as like a pain, and you want your freedom, but you're just, you're kind of playing the role of wanting this freedom and stuff like that. Like, sure, your life might have its own points of it feels like you're suffocating, but it's like there are a lot of people out here who have things worse off than you. You still have your parents. Kai doesn't really have anyone. She had you, but now she has Suma Garage, and that kind of got threatened now. The people she does care about, and it's like, and this all happened because Kai was trying to save you when you were, you know, manipulating her. So it's gonna be interesting to see what kind of happens going forward from there. This might be the last time we see a Yumi, because I had brought that up previously, whether or not we see her again, and it's like, yeah, of course she'd come back into the story the most catastrophic way possible. But the episode ends with Watari's dad showing up, but he's got Kageyama with him, because I think he's finally, and you see that sullen look on his face. I was like, he finally realizes like he went after the wrong people, because whatever went down at that warehouse or whatever made it, the fact is none of those people there had any guns, made him go like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. Like, because like obviously if the group that he went after had guns as well, like why aren't they firing any guns? Like if this group, like there's no, like why would they be there not being any guns around? So he knew that something was up. So I don't know if Watari's dad fed them. So he must have like he must have went to the garage expecting them to be there and ran into Watari's dad and probably explained some things, and now he wants to work with them because he's probably trying to make up for what he did. But it's like, yeah, that's such a hard thing where it's like you went so hard into pain after them and they weren't even guilty, you know? So we'll definitely see, like it's definitely like a, hey, we're temporary allies in all of this, trying to figure it all out. So I'm sure he's trying to also make amends for all the terrible stuff he's done, but we'll see how that all shakes out, how that all plays out going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.